From Washington, this is VOA News. Reaction in Israel and around the world following the death of former Israeli Prime Minister Ariel Sharon. And Ukraine opposition appeals for sanctions against the government. I'm Vincent Bruce, reporting from Washington. Former Israeli Prime Minister Ariel Sharon has died following complications from a massive stroke. Shlomo Noy, a director at the Sheba Medical Center near Tel Aviv, said the 85-year-old Mr. Sharon died in peace on Saturday with his family at his side.
Over the past week, he struggled with surprising strength and determination against the deterioration in his condition.
Noy said Mr. Sharon had never regained full consciousness after going into a coma in 2006. Israel's current Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said there is deep sorrow in the Jewish state over Mr. Sharon's death. Mr. Netanyahu says the former leader will live forever in the nation's heart. U.S. President Barack Obama and other world leaders sent condolence messages to Israel and Mr. Sharon's family. Palestinians who had seen the former minister as a bitter enemy rejoiced at the news of his death. Israeli President Shimon Peres, a longtime friend and rival of Mr. Sharon, called him a brave soldier and daring leader who loved his nation that also loved him.
He was an outstanding man and an exceptional commander who moved his people and loved them, and the people loved him.
UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon called Mr. Sharon a hero to his people, first as a soldier and then a statesman. Mr. Sharon was one of Israel's most influential and controversial figures as both a military commander and a political leader. Nathan Sachs is a fellow at the Brookings Institution's Saban Center for Middle East Policy. In a VOA interview, he said Mr. Sharon has many legacies as a military general and as Israel's leader.
A very beloved prime minister, one that many Israelis turn to as a certain father figure, a very seasoned politician in contrast to other much younger politicians who seem to have failed, such as Netanyahu, such as Ehud Barak. Sharon seemed to be the steady hand in the very traumatic days of the Second Intifada in the early 2000s.
Mr. Sharon served as prime minister from 2001 until 2006. When a stroke left him in a coma. On Sunday, the public will be able to pay its respects to Mr. Sharon at the Israeli Knesset in Jerusalem. On Monday, an official state ceremony will be held at the Knesset, followed by a private burial at Mr. Sharon's ranch in the southern Negev region. Ukraine's opposition has called on European powers to sanction members of the government. The action was taken hours after Ukraine's former interior minister turned current opposition leader Yuri Lutsenko was hospitalized from being beaten in clashes between demonstrators and police. Ukrainian opposition leader Viktor Klitschko said he has asked European leaders to consider personal sanctions against government members. More on these stories at voanews.com. The Central African Republic's former president, Michael Jojoja, has arrived in Benin, where officials say he is seeking exile after resigning under pressure. Mr. Jojoja arrived in Cotonou on Saturday, a day after an African regional bloc announced his resignation and the departure of Prime Minister Nicolas Chengai. Reporter Nick Long in Bangui told VOA the capital was mostly quiet Saturday after widespread violence in the CAR overnight.
I was hearing shooting during the night, a fair amount of shooting, much less today. It's calmed down today. During the night, a good deal of that shooting was probably people shooting to ward off or deter looters who were attacking or trying to attack shops, particularly Muslim-owned shops. But some of the shooting was clashes between armed groups, and there were people killed.
Skirmishes have continued in the Central African Republic a day after an African regional bloc announced the resignations of President Tojoja and Prime Minister Nicholas Chengai. Iran's deputy chief nuclear negotiator Abbas Araghchi says talks with world powers on Tehran's nuclear program have concluded with solutions on all points of disagreement. Araghchi made the comment to Iranian state-run television Friday after 2 days of talks in Geneva with envoys from the European Union and the United States. The newest star at the National Zoo in Washington appeared in front of visitors for the first time Saturday. Giant panda cub Bao Bao debuted in front of visitors from the zoo's members club. The zoo is allowing its members exclusive viewing opportunities before the 4.5-month-old bear appears for the first time next Saturday. I'm Vincent Bruce, VOA News in Washington.